Hey everyone, thank you and welcome back to a brand new episode of Coffee with a Beauty Reviewer. And today, folks, is the third episode, part of the MCU Avengers review series. And I just want to say thank you so much for watching. And now, with that out of the way, let's get started with today's review. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching my channel, and please like and comment down below, and please subscribe to my channel as it really helps me out. And let's get started with today's video. So the Avengers Infinity War is definitely one of the most influential movies of recent memory, not just because that I would consider Endgame to be more influential than this one, but I think it's more influential in a storytelling aspect, especially when it comes to the very ending. Because when it comes to movies, you would always root for the good guy, you always figure that the good guys would win, but this is a movie that really exceeds our expectations, especially when you see it for the first time in the theaters. And so I remember when I was in the Tacoma Cinemark theater, I went there to see it with my brother-in-law, with my best friend, and my wife. And so it just really brought a lot of emotions, and just even in me is that there was a big part of me that just felt like I was all like, is that it? Do I need to wait another year to watch the finale? And sure enough, that's exactly what they did. And so it's just one of those movies that you have to experience it in the theater. I would personally say that Infinity War and Endgame is such a big game-changing movie, especially Infinity War, because they really set a lot of things up, especially when it comes down to kind of the very ending, like I told you before. And so this is a movie that has everyone culminating from previous films. You got the likes of pretty much everyone except for Ant-Man and Hawkeye. But you definitely see a lot of character stories coming a little bit to the closing point in this film. You're just going okay, so now Wanda and Vision are an item now. And so, they do hint that in previous movies, especially in Age of Ultron, and even in Captain America Civil War. And so, I just really appreciated just kind of how they incorporated some of the stories that we got from previous films, and it just leads to this finale right here. Because it felt like that they closed the curtain for specific characters. I mean, not fully, but it really feels like that they just did a lot to kind of a left hook. Because really, you get one moment where it feels like that it's very serious, then you got another that's very lighthearted, and you're just on the edge of your seat. Because I remember sitting in the theater and I'm like, oh, please don't let Thanos get all the Infinity Stones, because if he does, he's gonna snap everyone out of existence. Well, not everyone, but I just really love the story in this one, because I think it's the story that really made this one so good. I would have never thought that I would actually care quite a bit of Thanos, because they teased him in previous movies, and you're all like, okay, this is the Mad Titan Thanos himself, because he is an almighty, very powerful alien from the planet of Titan. And so you're just kind of going well, we already know that this guy is a bad guy. He's been teased ever since the first Avengers movie. But the one thing that just really just made me go whoa, was just the fact that you actually saw some truth in what he was saying. But you do know that he's a character that you don't want to root for, because he's trying to he has good intentions, but a very bad execution. And that's what makes villains just so good, is that you feel like that if this character believes that he's doing something that will be good, but the execution is in a villainous way, that's when you make a really great villain, because that is exactly what they did with Thanos. And I got to tip my hat off to Josh Brolin, because he was so perfect in this movie as Thanos. Because like when I finished up watching this movie in the theaters, I'm like, they heavily focused on Thanos, because really you do get to see Thanos in previous movies, such as like the first Avengers. Then you got but either way, Thanos has been teased in previous movies, and so you're just going like, okay, he's definitely on the search for the Infinity Stones. And he's been using the likes of like Loki and a few other characters and the Chitauri alien race to get the other Infinity Stones from the previous films. So like, he's been pulling the strings since day one. He's the one who gave the Spectre to Loki. And so like, I just really, really, really loved it that they made us feel like, okay, there's a presence of Thanos in all the previous films, but now you got the character that you're gonna get in this movie, and they just exceeded expectations when it comes to his character story. Because like, I have never seen a villain get this much attention in a single film, because most of the time it's always been about the heroes. But this was clearly a Thanos movie, and I just really love it how they just kind of like made him feel human. Like, you could definitely see the good intentions, but like I said before, is that his execution is half of humanity to be wiped out. Like I said before, is that this is definitely a Thanos movie, and I just need to give props to Josh Brolin and just the writing, and I just couldn't believe how well they executed the character of Thanos, because this was definitely his movie, but there was a couple other characters, especially when it comes to the heroes, is that like they heavily relied more on Iron Man, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, the Guardians of the Galaxy, because it felt like that they were kind of like the ones that were kind of like in the very forefront. But then you also got the likes of like Thor. He did have his own story. I mean, like, you see him first in the movie, and he's on the verge of death, and he, like, this is the very part that really sold me that this movie is nothing that you can mess with, especially when it comes down to like the characters, like all the villains, the heroes, and you see Thanos kill more than half of the Asgardians, and then all of a sudden he kills Heimdall and Loki, and I'm all like, whoa. Okay, this is a guy that you don't want to mess with, because he already killed Heimdall, a god, Loki, a god, and he defeated Hulk like he was nothing. He kept on beating him up like a ragdoll, and I'm like, oh crap. This is definitely not going to be a movie like we've seen before, because like, this guy means business, and he already had 2 Infinity Stones in the very beginning, and like, it just threw me off so much, because I'm like, yes, we're finally now going to get Avengers Assemble, and then all of a sudden I'm like, okay. You got the likes of Thor and the Hulk, the most strongest Avengers that has already been assembled. So like, you already know that these characters are so powerful, but you got Thanos who defeated them so easily. And that is just the very beginning sequence. And that's the very thing that I just loved what they did with this movie, is that they just made you go like, wow, the stakes are very high. Like, this is a guy that you cannot mess with, because for one thing, he's after the Infinity Stones, which are actually like the most powerful artifacts in the entire Marvel universe. Like, these are very powerful. Even one Infinity Stone is cosmo planetary devastation artifacts. Like, these are like the most powerful artifacts in the entire universe. And not only that, he had a total of 5 of them. So like, this is end times potential apocalypse stakes. And I just really love it that they just built it up in the very beginning sequence. And so like, I just really appreciated that they got the chance to kind of like move some characters around, and you're just seeing like different character arcs going from like the Hulk. Now he's going to be with Iron Man and Doctor Strange and Wong. And so like, okay, this is kind of like a different dynamic. And then you got like Thor with Guardians of the Galaxy. That's a different dynamic. Then you got like a Captain America with War Machine, Natasha, Falcon. Like, you got different stories, different characters happening in different places. And I just love it that they just kind of like, okay, this is a story, that's a story, this is a story. But then they just brought it all together in the very climactic battle in the land of Wakanda. And I just loved what they did with the stories, like very subtle, short stories, but the main story in this movie is Thanos. He is the main character in this movie. Like, you don't get this that often, especially when the main story is all about the bad guy. You can understand where he's coming from, but you don't want him to obtain all the Infinity Stones or it's game over. But I just really appreciated what they did, especially with the entire group that is a majority of the Guardians of the Galaxy, with Iron Man, Doctor Strange, Peter Parker. And so like, I just really loved the humor that they had between Tony Stark, Doctor Strange, and even with Star-Lord, and even Spider-Man himself. I mean, like, they completely ripped off from a movie of the original Alien, and it was the exact same frame, especially when you see that guy that is like a sidekick. He dies the same way as the alien. It is like exact frame replica. And I'm like, that's brilliant. But there's definitely a lot of pop culture references in this movie. And there's even a complete Footloose reference. And you just really appreciate the entertainment value that they brought to this movie. But they really heavily relied on the story. Not so much in kind of like the entertainment value, because I would say today that the entertainment value is in the story. And that's the very thing that I enjoyed about this movie the most, because I would consider Avengers Infinity War my favorite Avengers movie out of all 4 of them. But either way, I do feel like that there was at least more kind of like nitpicks moments that I'm like, There was a couple pacing issues, but it really didn't bother me that much, because I think they just did a good job in just kind of like at least keeping it consistent, that either way that there's still high stakes, but there are still good humorous moments. And I just really love how they just kind of like ended it, because it made me go like, I want more, give it to me. Thanos, he obtains all of the Infinity Stones, and I just really love the story that they did with Thor, because he's a guy that he already went through so much. He lost his father, he lost his mother, he lost his brother Loki, he lost his best friend, and he just lost a very influential battle of his life against Thanos. So like, he pretty much has nothing left to live for. But his rage, just like, he went through so much in his life, and just the fact that Thanos did the very last thing that could potentially lead him to madness. But I just really love it how they just kind of went like, okay, he is nothing but a complete revengeful, spiteful character, but then he became so humble. He wanted to protect everyone. He went from like this just not that great of a guy to a good guy, but then it felt like that he went back to his original attributes. That is actually the very thing that led him for not to be worthy to wield Mjolnir. So I just really like it that they just kind of did a 180 in his character development, because he went back to his original state in his mind. And so you're like, okay, he's now trying to seek out revenge against this guy who just killed his stepbrother Loki. And like, it's all built up to this point because he already went through Ragnarok, and now he's dealing with more than half of his own last living Asgardians dead. And there's only Valkyrie and a few handful of Asgardians that left before this occurred. So like, that is all he had left. And I just really love it that it just finished up all the way to the very end, where he just get this big complete power boost, because like, so he could already use the powers of thunder without a hammer, but now it felt like that he just got a complete big upgrade with Stormbreaker. And I gotta tell you what, is that I just really love the humor that he has with Rocket and Groot. Like, I just really appreciated just what they did, is that he had to hold on for dear life coming from a dying star, a red dwarf dying star, to create Stormbreaker, and he was on the verge of death, but Groot was good enough to hold it on and just make a handle for Stormbreaker, and it just leads up to this most here comes Thor, the god of thunder. This is like the greatest introduction in any superhero film. Like, when we saw the Bifrost occur, and then all of a sudden you see nothing but Stormbreaker with a lot of thunder surrounding it. And I just remember in the theater that we were like, yes! And in the background you hear Bruce Banner, who is actually having a difficulty trying to become the Hulk because of his big, massive loss against Thanos. And he's like, you guys are so screwed! And all the aliens, the Black Order, they're all like, oh crap, what just happened? Because they're now in fear of this god of thunder, because he's killing so many aliens and making it look so easy. And he even made it so easy, and he came so close to killing Thanos. He threw Stormbreaker straight at him with all of the Infinity Stones all together in the Infinity Gauntlet, and he is shooting a beam right at the Thor, and Stormbreaker is just breaking through the whole thing and stabs him in the freaking heart. And I'm like, okay, I was just so relieved that Thor stopped him, but I was very upset that Scarlet Witch had to kill Vision in order to save the world, the universe. But then, after Thanos just obtained the Time Stone from Doctor Strange, he used the freaking Time Stone. I was, in the back of my mind, I'm going like, wait, she just killed Vision, he just got the Time Stone, oh crap. And he did exactly what I thought he was going to do. Use the Time Stone to reverse it, where Vision is still alive and the stone is still not destroyed. He rips it out of his forehead and puts it on the gauntlet, and you can just see him just get just so massively powered up. And he was on the verge of doing exactly what he wanted to do. But Thor, even though that he got a very direct hit, got him right in the heart, but that was not enough. Because he said, you should have gone for the head. Either way, I really think that this movie has always been about sacrifice. Doing what you think that you need to do. Because like, in every single moment when you see Thanos talking to a specific superhero, like he's talking to Iron Man, you can definitely tell that he had to sacrifice something in order to defeat him. And then you got the same thing with like Star-Lord. He had to sacrifice Gamora to make sure that he would not get the stone from Boromir to get the Soul Stone. And then you got the likes of like Scarlet Witch. She had to sacrifice Vision. Like, there was a running theme in this whole movie. It's all about love and sacrifice. Like, Are you willing to do what you need to do to save the entire universe? It might hurt, but are you willing to do it? And that is exactly what happened with every single character in this movie. And it went the same thing with Thanos. Was he willing to sacrifice his stepdaughter Gamora? Is he willing to sacrifice her for the Soul Stone to wipe out half of the universe? And I just really love the story behind this, because it's just so impactful. It punches you right in the gut. And I just remember especially when Spider-Man died in Iron Man's arms. I mean, he didn't die, but a lot of them just dusted it away after he snapped his fingers. And I'm like, no, this is not happening. And they just end the movie right after he snapped his fingers. Everyone is dusting it away, and everyone is like, what's happening? But then all of a sudden you see Thanos just sitting in a little cabin in some sort of like a desolate planet that has a beautiful sunset. And he's like, I did what I had to be done. It looked like he was completely at peace. He felt like he accomplished what he had to do. He did what he exactly wanted to do. He destroyed half the universe. And even at the cost of killing the one daughter that he loves. And I don't know why, I just really love the story about Thanos. And so I just really appreciate just the storytelling in this movie. I love the characters. Star-Lord, Chris Pratt, I love him as an actor. He's actually one of the very few actors that I appreciate the most, because he is just like a complete goofball. He just reminds me so much of myself and even my brother-in-law Matt. But the cool part is that he actually does live here in Washington, and so just knowing his life story, it's so great. But he does such a great job in just kind of acting like a douchebag in a way, because he's actually the very reason why that they failed. Because I could probably snap just the way that Star-Lord did, because he just found out that his girlfriend was murdered. And I don't know what I could do if I found out that my wife was murdered by Thanos, because I don't think I can do it. I will want to punch him in the face as well. And that's it. I just really love it that they just did a lot to make you go Star-Lord, what are you doing? But you understand why he is doing this, because he just lost someone that he truly loves. And I just really love the storytelling in this movie. It's so impactful. It is very somber. It is bittersweet, because you know that this is not really the end, because you know that we have Avengers Endgame. And so that either way, this movie is definitely by far the best Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, in my opinion. So this movie just really reminded me so much of Empire Strikes Back. And even Empire Strikes Back is my #1 favorite Star Wars movie of all time. And so I'm just really into kind of storytelling, and when you got a movie like this, they just convey character, they convey a good story. There's just emotional punch, and that is the very thing that just made this movie so good. And either way, that I would give the ranking of this movie a good 9.8. So that was my review for Avengers Infinity War. And I just want to say thank you so much for watching my video, and if you have not yet done so, please subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out. And if there's other movies you want me to review, just put it down in the comment section down below, and I will see you guys next time.